Sam Harris is back in his usual flow of things. We all remember in the post 9/11 era, there was this rise of new atheism. You had people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And look, I'd be lying if I said I didn't agree with a lot of what they wrote. I mean, The God Illusion, I think, was a great book from Richard Dawkins. He was like the least political of them. But Christopher Hitchens, God is Not Great. I didn't like that book as much as The God Illusion, but um, he used to be a socialist, and then he became a pretty ardent neocon in his older years, and he was for the war in Iraq. He kind of like was defending Bush when nobody else was defending Bush. So Hitchens kind of lost his way. And Sam Harris,
Yeah, you completely dismiss a person based on one take that you disagree with. Like, oh, lost his way. Ignore 90% of the work that this man has done, and I have one disagreement with him on one of his takes, and I'm just going to completely throw the guy out. Lost his way completely. Okay, sure. That's a very black and white approach.
he was hyper political and wrote a lot about like foreign policy stuff. Torture, of course, he wrote about, and he defended it in
Who defended torture?
stuff.
You talking about Sam Harris?
He was hyper political
Hold on.
in his older years, and he was for the war in Iraq. He kind of like was defending Bush when nobody else was defending Bush. So Hitchens kind of lost his way. And Sam Harris, he was hyper political and wrote a lot about like foreign policy stuff. Torture, of course, he wrote about, and he defended it in during the war on terror in the wake of.
Okay, that is an insane take on what Sam Harris has said. That is such a bad faith. That's such a straw man of misrepresentation. Defending torture, Sam Harris does examination of moral dilemmas, right? So I don't know. Let me know, guys, in the live chat. I think a lot of you might disagree on this, but you would understand that it's not a very hot take if you say that in a situation, if hypothetically you have a situation that torturing one person will get you an information that will save millions of lives, as bad as torture is, would it make sense to torture that person to get the information that will save millions of lives? That is a question, a dilemma that a lot of people exercise and talk about when they're doing moral philosophy, as Sam Harris does moral philosophy. So some people will say, yes, torture is horrible, but in that situation, maybe the cost of not torturing is so high that it would justify it. And some people will have a more principlist approach and be like, no, let tens of millions of people die and don't torture anybody. But again, whatever side you're on, it's not a really hot take for you to say, yeah, torture one person and save 10 million. That is not defending torture. That is a very, just dropping that line and acting like somebody is pro torture by examining that hypothetical situation and saying, like, yes, there are certain situations, because nothing is black and white. We are, doing utilitarianism. There are specific situations why it might make sense, as much as we want to be against it. And even if you disagree with that, that is not something that you could simplify as being pro torture. That is such a straw man. That's such a bad faith misrepresentation of what man's arguments are. Anyways, let's continue.
9/11.
But you can see that person. Like, when Sam Harris talked about this, he has gone through a lot of detail and explained this and re-explained this and came back and re-explained it to people who were misrepresenting this for years. And even after all that, this mofo feels like it's completely moral to just come drop that line and basically poison the well before he even gets to what Sam Harris is saying. This is poisoning the well. Let's continue, though. It's hard not to with this guy, though.
And now he's hitting his stride again, hitting a lot of those same talking points with what's happening in Gaza at the moment. And man, it is hard to listen to. Like, the stuff he's saying, the analysis is so incredibly simplistic. And I don't mean that in a positive way. It is.
We'll see about that. We'll see. Okay, so let's take the points. Okay, the analysis is simplistic. The analysis by Sam Harris is simplistic. Okay. By the way, the whole disagreement. This is about Hamas. If you have missed the title, right? So this is Sam Harris has made a comment about Hamas being worse than Nazis. And let's see what Kyle has to say about it.
Ironic, because he would accuse others of being like morally blind or morally confused. I think he is the height of moral confusion. So here he is. He's going to make quite a claim here about Hamas. And of course, the Nazis get dragged into it. Listen to this.
Overwhelming majority of people who are this confused about how to live good lives are Islamic extremists. And the worst of these are jihadists. Now, Hamas is a jihadist organization.
Right off the bat here, that's not really the full picture, is it, Sam?
How on earth could you have a problem with that? Because the only claim that has been made here is Hamas is a jihadist organization. How on earth could you have a problem with that? I wonder, how on earth could anybody disagree with this? Like, yeah, Susie is saying in the lecture, where's the lie? Guys, I'm not misrepresenting, because the first sentence he has a problem with. There's no way this is wrong. There's no way this is wrong. Listen to what Sam Harris has said. And if you guys tell me, these people act like they're not Hamas sympathizers. Tell me by the end of this show if they're not actually Hamas sympathizers, if they're not defending a terrorist organization. Let's see what Sam Harris said. And this is the first line that he has a problem with.
Hamas, and of course the Nazis get dragged into it. Listen to this.
Overwhelming majority of people who are this confused about how to live good lives are Islamic extremists. And the worst of these are jihadists. Now, Hamas is a jihadist organization.
Right off the bat here, that's not really the full picture, is it, Sam? It's not enough to just say, well, Hamas are jihadists, full stop. Like, that is purposefully leaving out a lot of nuance and complexity and detail, right?
What nuance and complexity and detail would make that any difference? With nuance and complexity and detail, you will have more reason to believe that there are jihadists. What are you talking about? Let's see what he's talking about. Let's continue.
We're clear on that, right? Like an actual jihadist organization, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their goal is global caliphate.
Wait, he says, so he's saying they're not a jihadist organization. He says an actual jihadist organization like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So by calling Al-Qaeda and ISIS actual jihadists, Kyle is saying Hamas is not jihadist. Well, let's see what makes ISIS and Al-Qaeda jihadist and not Hamas. Unbelievable. These people always want to separate Hamas from ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They always want to say, like, no. These people are defending Hamas. I'm telling you, they're defending Hamas. Why would ISIS, based on Kyle, why would Hamas and ISIS be jihadists and not Hamas? We'll see.
Right? Like an actual jihadist organization, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their goal is global caliphate. That's their goal. That is not Hamas's goal.
That's not the definition of jihadist. First of all, it's not true. It's not true that Hamas doesn't want a global caliphate. They do want, their immediate goals are different. Just like, here's the thing, just like ISIS' immediate goals were different. Just like Al-Qaeda's immediate goals were different. Hamas also wants a global caliphate. But even if it didn't, it wouldn't make it not jihadist. Guys, guess what would make you a jihadist? What would make you a jihadist? I have a hint for you. It's in the name. It's doing jihad. If you do jihad, you're a jihadist. Okay? Who on based on what definition Kyle has went and dug from where that you have to want with the aim of a global caliphate, doing jihad makes you a jihadist. No, Kyle, just doing jihad makes you a jihadist. What did you think a jihadist is? A jihadist is somebody who does jihad. Idiot. And here's the thing. Let him continue. Maybe he has some nuance that I'm not missing here.
They want Palestine to be a country, and they want it to be governed by Islamic law. That's true. But they don't have global ambitions. In the same way,
sure?
like, like the Houthis, for example, putting them on the terror list, it was preposterous because they're not going to do terror attacks against the West because they're trying to form a...
They did. The Houthis do. It's preposterous to put terrorists on a terror list. I'm like, they're not going to do terror attacks against the West. They did terror attacks against the West. They attacked Western civilians. Well, not just... First of all, how selfish do you have to be for you to only consider an organization a terrorist group if they attack the West? They have to only attack Westerners for them to be terrorists? And also, they did attack everybody. They attacked everybody. They attacked Western civilians, Japanese, Koreans, Muslim, Arab, Israeli. They done a terrorist attack on most of the globe. They're waiting for ships to just pass around their area, and they're attacking them. How is that not a terrorist group? Unbelievable. I didn't expect it to get extra idiotic this fast. But let's go to the first point, that they're not a jihadist group because they don't want a caliphate, right? So let's go to that, play that again.
Like, that is purposefully leaving out a lot of nuance and complexity and detail, right? We're clear on that, right? Like an actual jihadist organization, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their goal is global caliphate. That's their goal. That is not Hamas's goal.
All right. That is not Hamas's goal, right? First of all, even if it wasn't their goal, I will show you that they want to do jihad, and they themselves say that they want to do jihad, and they're proud of doing jihad. But even if this weird, bizarre definition that Kyle is coming up with for what makes you a jihadist, by the way, this is not the definition that Muslims agree with it either. You could basically, based on many Muslims, you could be sitting home and be behind your computer and just like doing struggle against the enemies of Islam on your keyboard, and you would be a jihadist. So their definition of who's a jihadist is a lot broader. I don't know why Kyle, why are you imposing your Western perspective on who's a jihadist on Muslims? Like, who gave you the permission to tell Muslims what is jihad and what's not jihad? Where did you get this definition from? Because this is not definition of Muslims. But again, let me just play this last part because I really want to show how wrong he is right after he says it, because it's just so beautiful. Okay, it's just so beautiful, guys. You have to show this to a lot of people because I'm going to show you how wrong he is. It's just so beautiful.